Chapter 21 and Runt. Runt paused once, just at the edge of the closing growing trees, listening to see if someone from the pack might call him back. No one did. He moved out, taking the direction Biter had earlier. He found the place again easily, following his nose, following his memory of the humps of the rock and fallen trees, even of patches of flowers. In the open pasture beyond the easily penetrated fence, the beasts owned by humans grazed. They moved slowly as though a dream of thin morning light. At the edge of the pasture lay the carcass of the one Biter had killed. The smell of meat filled the air, rich and compelling. And as Runt had guessed, Biter was there before him, feasting again. When Runt approached, the white wolf growled deep in his throat. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see if you're all right," Runt replied. "Of course I'm all right. Why wouldn't I be?" Biter tore off a hunk of meat from the carcass and swallowed it in a great gulp. Drool dripped from Runt's tongue at the sight, but he kept a respectful distance. He had seen what Biter's teeth could do. Looking at Biter, he could see what King's teeth had done too. The white wolf was bleeding from a wound on his back, and one leg was deeply slashed. Still, Runt was hungry. "May I?" He took a step forward. "Why should I share my kill with the likes of you?" Biter growled again. "You'll only go back to him when your belly's full." "Would he?" "No," Runt said. "Never." Biter made no reply, just tore off another hunk of meat and gulped it down. Runt was almost certain he was smiling, though. Whether it was something like affection or merely satisfaction at seeing the pack break up, he couldn't tell. "I would help you hunt," Runt offered. "Help me hunt? Do you think I need help from—" Runt knew what Biter was going to say. "Do you think I need help from a runt like you?" But the white wolf left the sentence unfinished. In fact, he stopped eating entirely and suddenly sat back perfectly still, his head twisted at an odd angle. He looked surprised, though Runt couldn't tell why. Runt took a few steps closer. Maybe Biter had eaten his fill and was ready to share now. "No, don't! You mustn't!" a hoarse voice shouted. Runt glanced over to see Raven perched on the fence. What was that annoying bird doing here now? And what was he worried about anyway? The two wolves feasting on this huge carcass wouldn't leave enough scraps for one bird. Runt decided not to ignore him. "I know I'm not very big," he said to Biter, "and I know I have a lot to learn, but I will grow bigger and you will teach me." He licked one of the cow's hind hooves. It had been too long since he had eaten. "No!" Raven screamed again, and this time he landed directly in front of Runt. The black pup stepped back away from the bird, but he was rigid with impatience. "Why shouldn't I eat?" he demanded to know. "If Biter is willing to share, can't you see? This meat has been touched by them." There it was again, such ignorance. Humans contaminated all they touched. Well, Runt knew better. He stepped around Raven, but before he could take his first mouthful, Biter gave a sudden jerk. He lifted his front paws to his face, pulling at his muzzle. His eyes, still on Runt, looked bewildered. Raven flapped his wings and rose into the air to drop again on the ground at Runt's side. "Look around you," he screamed. "Just look. Can't you see?" For the first time since he had arrived at the pasture, Runt looked. Not only was Biter behaving strangely, trying to vomit now, but unable to bring anything up, but other animals lay on the ground. A jay, a wolverine, a score of mice, velvet shrews, even a bald eagle lay still dead just a few feet from the meat he had been eating. "Poison," Raven croaked. "The humans have poisoned the meat." Even as Raven spoke, Biter struggled to his feet. He stumbled toward Raven as though attacking him would change the truth of what had been said. But before he could reach the black bird, his front legs gave out and he lurched. His jaw struck the ground. Saliva bubbled from his lips. Runt went still, the sweet-smelling meat just inches from his nose. He stared at the white wolf and the rest of the animals lying on the ground, dead before the feast. Runt had seen death before, of course, but never so terrible a way as this. Biter struggled to rise, fell forward, did not get up again. His yellow eyes remained open, haunted, and that was when the sun broke free of the trees and shone down on the carnage below. Runt looked at the white wolf, utterly still, his face contorted in pain. He looked at the other poor poisoned creatures, then he looked beyond them all to the brilliant day. He sat back on his haunches, trembling. I, he said to Raven, I thank you. Raven bowed his head modestly, drew a horny claw through his beak. Runt looked for a long time at the dead animals scattered in the dewy grass. It is true, he asked, do humans really contaminate all they touch? Not all, Raven replied, but enough. Runt thought about that. Tell me, he said finally, what should I do? Where should I go? Home, Raven replied. Your father is waiting for you. Go home. Runt shook his head. My father named me, he said. There seemed to be nothing more to say. Your father loves you, perhaps more than all the rest. Puh! Runt let out an explosion of disbelieving breath. King watches you, Raven spoke gently. He worries about you. He wants desperately for you to survive. If that's not love, I don't know what is. But Runt could only shake his head again.